World Health Organization. At a White House briefing, Trump took issue with the amount of money the U.S. sends to the organization compared to what China gives. He said the U.S. is putting a hold on funding.
So we're going to do study, investigation, and we're going to make a determination as to what we're doing. In the meantime, we're holding back.
Trump stated that the WHO is very biased towards China and failed to take the coronavirus situation seriously. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is detailing efforts to get Americans home amid the coronavirus pandemic. He said the State Department has repatriated over 50,000 Americans from around the world. Kansas's governor is slamming lawmakers in the state for overturning her ban on religious gatherings. Governor Laura Kelly restricted gatherings to 10 people as a way to slow the spread of the coronavirus. This has been an NBC News Radio special report. I'm Brian Shook.
California headline news. Governor Gavin Newsom today updated the COVID-19 picture in California, saying the state has just over 18,000 positive cases.
1,132 individuals are in our ICUs, and 2,825 are now hospitalized.
Sadly, 492 people have died from COVID-19. Around the state, there's a growing problem in nursing homes and other care facilities. Riverside County Health Officer Dr. Cameron Kaiser says it's time to think about pulling family members out of nursing homes.
I think that's something that needs to be considered. Again, this needs to be brought in with the entire scope of what kind of care they need. Some people require an awful lot of care, more than can be handled at home.
Earlier this week, a nursing home in Riverside had to be evacuated because the staff did not show up for work because of a growing number of cases. And civil rights activists and attorneys are calling for all inmates at the Alameda County Santa Rita Jail to be released to keep them safe from coronavirus. 11 inmates have already tested positive. Steve Clausen, California News.
Welcome back to Sports View. Today's topic, who's the greatest of all time? For my money, it's Progressive's Home and Auto Bundle. It literally saves you money. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Look, it's simple.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Add up all the heroes, take away the zeros, and what you got? One big trophy of me saying, I told you so.
I disagree.
Thanks, fellas. Took the words right out of my mouth.
There's really no debate. Progressive's Home and Auto Bundle is a winning combination. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
At Ace, we always have been and always will be committed to our local communities because we're here to help others. So in this time of need, your local Ace remains open. And since we're in your neighborhood, we can deliver almost anything you need. So shop in store or online for the home or yard products you're looking for. And choose from top brands like Steel, Ego, Toro, and Scotts. Then you can pick up in-store, curbside, or we'll deliver your order right to your door. Help is just around the block. See acehardware.com for details.
KCAA.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome, friends. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I'm your host, Father John Reid, and I think I'm coming through better now. Can you hear me better now? I feel like I'm on one of those telephone commercials. Can you hear me now? And we're having a little problem with microphones tonight. It's probably the rain messing with our electronic equipment. But in case you missed it, you are listening to Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reid. Just a reminder that you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Just go to Viewpoint with Father John, and you can message me through either one of those platforms. I do get those instant messages from you, and I do enjoy it. Though some of you make some cracks at some of the pictures, and, you know, that's just bad juju and get you some bad karma. But do what your conscience allows you to do. All of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I'm on a quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing their divinely inspired potential. Disposing a false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And folks, as you hear from me quite often, I say this because I really mean it. If you want the best pharmacy in Southern California, you want to go to Claremont Pharmacy in the city of Claremont. Dr. Nikki Ho is the proprietor of that establishment. It's on the corner of Indian Hill Boulevard and Arrow Highway. I get all my pharmaceutical needs there, particularly my diabetic medications, I'll tell you what, having a good A1C is important. It could change your life. And particularly right now with this coronavirus going around, you want to stay as healthy as possible. And to help you do so, in addition to the medications, she has a good selection of vitamins and such. And she'll tell you what's good for you. I mean, she's as honest as the day is long. And I just think the world of this place. And that's why I get all my pharmaceutical needs taken care of there. And I like going into a place where they know you personally. You're not just a number. So Claremont Pharmacy in the city of Claremont. Kids, again, we're looking at right now where it stands. And I just watched this number grow within the last hour. But at the moment, where we stand is 16,691 deaths in the U.S. from the coronavirus. And at the moment, we have diagnosed with cases 468,566. Those are people who have been diagnosed sick. Now, in giving you those numbers, I want to make it real clear. We're not testing everybody. So these numbers are really larger than they look. There are a lot of people, some of them dying at home because they're afraid to go to the emergency room with everything going on. And because they weren't tested, many of them don't get classified as coronavirus. Why do I say this to you? I just want you to be careful. You know, I care about you as my listeners and as my fellow human beings, especially my American brothers and sisters. I really care about you here in the States. I realize people listen to the show all around the world, and I appreciate that. And I want everybody to be safe. These are scary times. And it's not a matter of having enough faith. We have plenty of faith. What we need is kindness. We need good sense. Never follow a faith that tells you to throw your brain out. Faith and thinking go together. They are compatible. And so be aware of any religion that says you should not use your brain. That's God gave us brains to use for a good reason, so we can work hand in hand with God. Now, I mentioned last week that temporarily we are changing the format of the show beginning tonight. And the reason for it is there's a lot of people who can't get to church right now. Now, I'm not a holy roller. I don't even roller skate well, but I'm too old for that. But I do want to give you some spiritual nutrients. And for those who can't go to church, and hey, look, it's a smart thing to do to stay home from church right now. I'm all about faith. I'm all about the belief. And again, God gave us brains to use. I have real issue with these churches that are saying, come and gather. In fact, over on CNN, which is a credible news source, I will tell you that as someone in the media, don't believe that baloney that they're not good. They are. NBC is good, obviously. I say that partly because this is a NBC affiliate station. But besides that, I say it because it is a good place to get straight news. And so my point being is CNN did a thing where they interviewed some people going to a mega church. And look, we just had people in Kansas come down sick and die because they brought the coronavirus, not meaningfully, not meaningfully, into their congregation. Someone who was a pew behind them and off a little bit, who spoke with them and passed them the collection plate. This is a real case. They're dying of coronavirus right now. All right? Look, God expects us to do our part. Let me give you an example. God is all for you having a hot dog if you want a hot dog. But if you think God's going to do the whole thing, try locking yourself in the closet, praying for a hot dog, and seeing if God sticks it through the keyhole. God's happy for you to have a hot dog, but he expects you to go to the refrigerator, get it, and put it in the microwave or boil it, however you make your hot dogs. That's doing our part with God, being co-creators with God. So the idea that you have to show up in a building, the building is not the church. The church is the people that go inside the building. The building is just a building. And if God could be confined to a building, God wouldn't be big enough to solve our problems. Okay? Wherever you are, God is. If you don't hear anything else tonight, I hope you hear that. Wherever you are, God is. As a friend of mine used to say, I'm sorry for the English teachers, but I'm quoting now, there is no spot where God is not. Okay? Live with it. Pray for me. Anyhow, this is what we call Monday, Thursday. Not Monday, Thursday, Maundy, Thursday. There's a U in there. And biblically, this is when Jesus had gathered the apostles, and they're getting ready for their Last Supper. And he takes off his robes, and he ties around his waist a towel, and he gets water, and he washes the feet of the disciples. It's a very touching scene, a very moving scene. It's one of the reasons this is what we also call the night for the Chrism Mass, where we do the holy oils and stuff, because it's one of the holiest nights we have before the crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And I want you to picture this. Here's the rabbi, the master, the Son of God, and he's washing the feet of his disciples. That's humility. More than that, it's showing the hands-on love of God. It's one of my favorite parts in the Bible. I love this part. So here he is, and he gets to Peter. And Peter says, I should be washing your feet. And Jesus is trying to let him know, I am showing you the example. And as I wash your feet, you should wash the others' feet. What I've done for you, you shall do for others. And so then Peter says, well, then wash my hands and my head and my entire being. And Jesus says, you don't need your entire body washed when it's already been washed. We're washing your feet. In other words, he was clean from the inside out from the teachings Jesus has given him, just as all of us are that follow this. So he does this, including Judas's feet, who he knows is going to betray him. They have the supper, the great meal, the great Eucharist, which means the great Thanksgiving. And he takes the bread, and he breaks it, and he makes the analogy, this is my body, which be given up for you. And those of us of liturgical faiths, we know the words of this, where you're Eastern Orthodox, Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopalian, Methodist. We all do pretty much the same thing. And so he's letting us know, if seeing me is good, embodying me is better. And then he takes the chalice and says, this is the blood of the New Testament, the new covenant. What's a covenant? A covenant is a new agreement, a new bond. And I give this to you. Drink this in memory of me. In the Aramaic, it says, do this when you wish to have me in your presence. Both translations are good, okay? So don't get caught up in which translation is right. They're both right. They're both good. It's like tomato, tomato. The idea is to ingest it, to take it in. And there's more than one way to ingest Jesus. Yes, one is in the Eucharist. The other is to ingest Jesus by breathing Jesus in, by eating of the words of Jesus. These are all really important ways to take in and become one. Why do we eat it? To become one with this great teaching, with this way of life. So that's how we're starting out tonight. It's not a bad way to start out. And as you know, tomorrow will be Good Friday. And I got to tell you something. I was one time here in San Bernardino, Rabbi Cohen, who was a fabulous rabbi. This is about 20 years ago or so. And we're having an ecumenical gathering. And we're putting it together for Good Friday. And Rabbi Cohen says, I don't understand you Christians. You have one Good Friday a year. He says, we Jews, every Friday's good. So this is to you, Rabbi Cohen. I love you, brother. You're wonderful. And thank you for that wonderful tidbit of laughter, because faith without laughter is just a funeral. And we're about living. And so tonight we're going to get into a few things about our spiritual journey on this weekend of Easter. And before I go too much farther, for our Jewish brothers and sisters, I want to wish you a blessed Passover. And brothers and sisters, I want to make it real clear, if we are Christian, our Jewish brothers and sisters are just that, our brothers and sisters. We come from that. Jesus is Jewish. Jesus never stopped being Jewish. Jesus loved being Jewish. Okay? So before you start getting uppity about we being Christians and they being Jewish, it was good enough for Jesus. It's good enough for me. And so I wish you a blessed Passover. May the spirit of death not land at your house during this weekend. And may you be filled with life and reasons to celebrate. And I know this year was tough. The dinner last night was had to be done telephonically for some people. Some people couldn't do that because of the if you're Orthodox Jewish, you don't use the electronic equipment. So I pray that your dinner last night was holy and enriching, even though it was limited by our situation with coronavirus. We're going to take our first break a couple minutes early because I have a lot I want to get into this evening. And so we'll be back in about 90 seconds, and you're listening to Viewpoint with Father John.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org, www.4pfp as in personal funeral planning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, K292FQ Riverside, and K293CF Moreno Valley.
Make a stop at the KC Country Junction.
Go to this place they call Country Junction.
Country legends, all-time classics, and recent favorites all meet at kccountryjunction.com. Make your day a little bit country at kccountryjunction.com and overnight starting at 1 a.m. on KCAA 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, and 1050 a.m. It's the KC Country Junction on KCAA and kccountryjunction.com.
And welcome. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reid, and on this sacred weekend of Easter, we're talking about what these things mean spiritually for us. I mean, look, it's not about just coloring eggs and hiding them for the kids, which I don't know if we can even do that this year. I'm serious about it. I don't know what the current idea is from the health department. So, sorry, I'm playing with my microphone here a little bit. Anyhow, my concern with this is that we take a spiritual journey this weekend, that we really embody what this is about. You know, sometimes I think that religion could either be the greatest catalyst or it can be the greatest obstacle to faith, depending on how it's used. Let me tell you what I mean by that. When you're going through something, and every time you go to talk to somebody about your pain, they shoot a verse at you, or just tell you have to have more faith, that could be devastating. Or you've heard us talk about this on the show when we dealt with grief and with sorrow. Somebody you love dies, and you go to get comfort by your faith family, and they say, Well, you should be rejoicing they're in a better place. Look, they may be in a better place. That's wonderful. But why can't I grieve? Did not the disciples grieve when Jesus was crucified? Did not Jesus weep when Lazarus died, even though he was going to raise Lazarus? So when we just have, as Barbara Taylor puts it, only have sunshine Christianity, then no matter what happens, they shoot you sunshine. You're not allowed any time in the dark. It could really feel like a letdown. Look, Good Friday is about the fact that our Lord and Savior, the one who loved us and the one that we love, is being crucified. If that doesn't bring some sorrow, well, you're kind of out of touch as far as I'm concerned. It's sad. The disciples were sad. Jesus' mother was sad. Could you imagine watching your son go through this? 33 years with him, and then suddenly he's being crucified? That's quite an experience. So if you don't think that she was sad, and her being sad doesn't mean she didn't have faith. Don't mistake human emotions for lack of faith. I was talking to somebody earlier, and I wish I could remember who I was talking to. It was a friend of mine. Oh, my friend Jerry, I think I was talking to him. And we're talking a little bit about this, and I said, faith without any forms of doubt or with any life experience is superstition. It's not faith. If you don't take good care of yourself, like these people who are running into these churches. I know some people are going to send me some letters on this, and that's okay. It's my opinion, but I'm right. That we need to be separating physically. I mean, I have the greatest sound engineer in the world. That's Frank, and he's sitting in another room running this show. Some of you are watching him on Facebook Live, I believe, and so wave to the camera, Frank. And only the people on Facebook Live can see him wave. We both have faith, and we also know we have good sense. I hear these people talking about being, washed in the blood of Jesus. Okay, that's great. Do you know what it means? It doesn't mean to be foolish. In fact, we're told in the Old Testament, do not tempt God. And, St. Paul tells us about, not creating scandal and the difference between faith and being foolish. So we're not supposed to be foolish with this. Now, here we are, Monday to Thursday. And Jesus is washing the feet of his disciples. And he's telling them, take this example I'm showing you, and you do the same thing. What does that mean for us? It means that if we're going to claim to be Christians, that means we have to be servants, not the ones looking to be served. And I could remember when I was in seminary, I used to have a instructor that used to say, don't ever forget the collar doesn't make the priest. A good priest is a good servant. You're there for the people. And you can't be a good servant if you start off with no. Always try to start off with the word yes. And do whatever you can that is within your abilities to do, and sometimes outside your abilities and just within God's abilities to do, because often that's what happens. But do your best to say yes, no matter what time, day or night it is. And so, I used to, when I was at St. Michael's Parish out in Arcadia, it wasn't uncommon for 3 o'clock in the morning or so to have my phone ring because all the hospitals knew that they wouldn't get an answering service. Now, I'm not saying that to pat my back, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I took this really serious, and I was honored every time that they called for me to go out to a hospital because it gave me a chance to do the one thing I'm here to do, which is love people. How can I love God if I don't love you? It's an oxymoron. I have to love you in order to love God. I don't always like you. I don't always like the things you do. But my job as a Christian is to look at you and try to see the presence of God inside you. And that's a real spiritual thing. That's what the mystics are able to do. And all this leads up to what we're doing here. And at one point, I served for a while as core bishop. So I had a diocese that I served. And I used to tell the priests that served with me, I used to say, you are the servants of the people, and I am the servant of you. I'm here to help you do what you need to do to serve the people. So I'm the servant of the servants. And I meant that with every fiber of my being. Where am I going with this? I'm taking this from the scriptures that I read on this day in most of your churches, where it talks about the washing of the feet. How can I be a servant if I'm too good to wash your feet? Instead, I want you to wash my feet. There's a contradiction there. So while I can't be with you physically, I'm hoping that tonight, in a way, I'm washing your feet and rubbing your soul a little bit and bringing some comfort, but also a little irritation. You know, a good deep massage, deep muscle massage hurts a little bit too, but it brings great reward. And if you think faith never has pain, well, again, that's superstition. That's not faith. When we grow, it's painful, especially with our resistance to growth. And you know, I don't know about you, but I often resist. I resist less now because my tolerance for pain has gone way down. But I do resist. I do have pain. And I have those dark nights. And this weekend is about the dark night of the soul. Jesus has been crucified. He doesn't even stick up for himself when they're interrogating him, because he knows this is something he needs to do. Now, do you think Jesus didn't know fear? Let me backtrack a little bit, digress, if you will. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus feels the weight of our sins. I'm taking this from Scripture. He is sweating tears of blood. Now, that doesn't mean real blood was coming out. It's an expression. But it's being in a cold sweat. He is in so much anxiety and fear about what's about to happen. And he even says, God, if it be your will, take this cup from me. But then he says, but not my will, your will be done. And where I'm going with this is, if it's okay for Jesus, who knows how this is going to turn out, to have fear, it's okay for us to have fear too. Because even with the fear, Jesus moves forward. Even with the anxiety, which if I was going to be crucified, I would really be anxious, because this was a brutal experience. The Romans knew how to crucify in just a way, to put the nails in such a way that it created the maximum amount of pain. And they did it in a way where it would take you the longest to die, at least 3 days in most cases, because they wanted you to suffer, and they wanted people to see you suffer. That way they knew you didn't go up against the Roman government, the empire. Okay? So this was really a brutal thing. And if I knew I was going to go through that with as much faith as I have, and I have pretty good faith, I believe, I too would be sweating tears of blood. But Jesus' love for us is so great. Jesus goes through it anyhow, including his love for you. We say, I wasn't there 2,000 years ago. Well, you don't have to be. Jesus is timeless. And so this is a beautiful thing that's happening. But my point is, if Jesus could be afraid at this, so can you. And so Jesus goes through the dark night of the soul, where he goes through the questioning, where even on the cross, he, quotes from Psalm 22, why hast thou forsaken me? Now, this is the Son of God who's been absolutely loyal and obedient. And the reason he does this is to let us know it's okay to feel our feelings. It's okay to question. So during this questioning time, when we're getting ready to go into the tomb with Jesus, the idea of it is we will have dark nights too. And that's why I have a tough time when people are going through this, for people to do nothing but tell them you got to walk on the same side of the street. There used to be a song I grew up with. It says, keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. You will feel no pain, though they drive you insane. So keep on the sunny side of life. I can't believe I still remember that. I used to sing that at YMCA camp, Camp Oaks. And we didn't have anything to drink. We were just campers, man. I don't know how we got through that all the time, every year. And we went back. So I know, I'm going to get some letters from the Y. The Y is a great organization. I'm just playing with you. But the point being, there are times we're not supposed to be on the sunny side of the street. There are times that we need to learn our lessons in the darkness. That's why I love St. John of the Cross when he talks about the dark night of the soul. When Sister Avila talks about her dark times, Mother Teresa talks about her dark times. One of my favorite is Father Nouwen, Henry Nouwen, I should say, excuse me. He dealt with a lot of dark nights of the soul. I mean, he wrote books on this, and they're fabulous. And there's a book I really want to recommend to you right now that I think is an important reading, which is Learning How to Walk in the Dark. And it's a book about what we learn and the necessity of our dark times and looking at our fears of the dark. And don't be so quick to turn the light on, because what good is light if you'd never have dark? You need to contrast. What good is happy if you never have sad? Happiness would mean nothing. And there's things that we can only learn in the dark. I'm looking at Frank as I say that through the glass, because he was walking in the dark a few weeks ago and stubbed his toe on a rock, and he still hurts like mad. So sorry, Frank. He learned to put shoes on in the dark. Sorry. I laugh at his pain because it's not my pain. But I'm sure I'll pay for that later. But the point being, the dark is necessary. Don't just run away from the dark. And sometimes our family and faith will watch us going into dark, and they'll stay where they could, we can still hear them and they could hear us as they scream, come back to the light, come back to the light. And they don't realize, no, this is part of the plan. Jesus couldn't go through the resurrection until he went through the death first, and the 3 days in the tomb first. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a time for growth. It's a time for enlightenment on a new level. But to have the enlightenment, you have to spend some time in the dark. And you have to be willing to look at the fears. Now, this goes throughout the entire Bible. What happens to Jonah? He's in the belly of the fish or the whale, depending on which translation you have. For what? For 3 days. Just like Jesus is in the tomb for 3 days. And what is that time? It's a time for processing. It's a time for preparation. It's a time to get ready for a new understanding. And you can't have that new understanding if you're running away from the dark. If you come out of the belly of the fish too soon, if you come out of the tomb too soon, if you don't die to self. That's what the dark is. It's dying to the self. We talked before about crisis time being awakening time. We said that 2 weeks ago. And this is part of that. And this Easter weekend is part of this. So I want you to not be so afraid of the dark. Don't always have a Christian nightlight on because you're afraid of the monsters. Instead, ask what color are the monsters' eyes. Ask what the witches are going to do. Okay, I'm talking figurative, of course. But ask questions in the dark. What am I supposed to be learning here? What is it I'm afraid of? What is it I don't want to look at? And then as we look at these things, we find out that's not as scary as we thought. Usually what it is we think we're up against something we can't survive, something that's going to kill us, something that's going to really be beyond our ability to face. But we're not facing it alone. We're facing it with God. We're facing it with our Creator who loves us so much that even before we're born, it carved our name into the palm of his hand. Okay? I hope you hear this. God did not bring you this far to drop you on your head. That doesn't mean you're not going to have some dark times. Look, we have day and night. We need them. Could you imagine if we had sun 24-hour day now? In Alaska, they have some of that, and it's maddening. A lot of people tell you it's awful. But we have both day and night. And we need both day and night, so we know the rest. So we know when to do our planting and when to do our harvesting and when to sleep and when to be awake. Okay? Unfortunately, we walked away from that, so we have people working every shift these days, and it's really throwing our humanity off greatly. I don't know how good that is for us, but that's a topic for another day. But the night is just as necessary as the day. And it comes in seasons. You have the full moon, then you have where the moon sheds into the darkness, and then it comes back to a full moon again. And during those times, in the darkness, what happens? Where we have the absence of what seems like the absence of the moon, the stars seem brighter. And we see new kinds of beauty that we didn't see before. So keep this in mind, that the dark is not bad. It's just like the night. We need it. It's necessary. And you're not being a bad Christian because you're experiencing the dark. You're not being punished. It's just part of the process. I can remember some time back we had these street lights. Some of you may remember this. And because of the type of lights they were using, the trees were dying. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, it's the type of light they were using where it always seemed like it was daytime and the trees could not rest. I bet you didn't know that trees have to rest. They do. And because they thought it was sun all the way around, they were getting sick. They were getting disease from it. So they had to change these street lights out for the preservation of the trees. We're like that. We're like that. So God is kind enough to give us the contrast of day and night, light and dark. Our trick is to become comfortable in the dark and to ask our deepest questions when it's dark. Why am I afraid? What is it I think I can't survive? What are the monsters? Well, I don't know about you, but some of my monsters are, can I pay my bills? Will people still love me? Will people tune into the radio show? Will NBC kick me off the airwaves because I get too wild? I sometimes wake up with those things. Sometimes I wake up with crazy dreams because I need to process something. So what takes place in the dark is just as important as what takes place in the light. I think sometimes a little more important. And speaking of light and dark, we're going to go to our commercial break because otherwise the show is going to go dark or the lights will go out because we don't pay the bills. But you're listening to Viewpoint with Father John. We'll be back in about 90 seconds.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org, www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
What do you get when two pizza-loving brothers start making their own pizza? Strongman Pizza. Some of the best pizza in the area, made up by Andrew and Amon Gonzalez since 2013. It was a slow start, but now it's in high demand at 2 locations. Strongman delivers to Redlands and Ukaipa. Get it now. Google it now. Strongman Pizza, delivered right to your door. Mouth-watering and amazing. Dough made from scratch and proof to perfection. A layer of patented strong sauce to give each pizza that zesty goodness it deserves. A garlic butter crust to get that crisp, flavorful crust that is never left behind. A mountain of 100% mozzarella cheese oozing flavor into every bite. topped with the freshest ingredients found on Earth. All produce purchased locally. All pizzas made with love. People can order online at strongmanpizza.com. That's strongmanpizza.com or Google Strongman Pizza. They're taking every precaution to stay safe and deliver your pizza under the safe at home guidelines. Eat strong, stay strong, be strong. Strongman Pizza.
And welcome back. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or you can listen from anywhere in the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reid, and a quick shout out to the best sound engineer in the business. Frank, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, Father John. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm well. How's that foot of yours?
A little puffy.
Yeah.
And my pride's a little broken now, but...
Well, we already have Puff Day, so I'm going to start calling you Puff Footy.
Puff Footy, okay.
Puff Footy, all right. I think I can catch on. I'll teach you how to do rap, you know. Start with Christmas presents. I rap with those good. So,
okay.
I'm sorry, that's really bad. Frank and I were laughing during the last commercial because we know the person doing the voiceover on that, and you know we're going to make fun of him when we see him. So, because I have no shame. That's right. That's right. That's why I do radio, not television. So anyhow, so we're talking about our spiritual journey of Easter weekend, and I know I'm kind of taking a long way with things, but there's a lot of things to unpack here. And so now let's get into the resurrected Christ, the Easter, what we're supposed to be celebrating this Sunday. And I hope that with the celebration of Easter Sunday, you too have your spirit resurrected, not just the body. The body of Jesus was resurrected. And we know that because in the book of Acts, it talks about having Thomas put his finger in the holes in Jesus' hands and his hand in Jesus' side. And I'm glad it's in there, and I'll tell you why I'm glad it's in there. Sometimes it's hard to have faith. And Thomas is like me, and I am like Thomas. Now, Thomas meant the twins. They had a brother somewhere. And I'll go into that another night. But he had to see to believe. And sometimes it feels like that, doesn't it? Here's what is so meaningful to me. Jesus wasn't angry with him for having doubts. Jesus instead showed up and showed him the wounds. And he said, put your finger into my hand. Now, why did he say that? Well, because what did Thomas say? I will only believe that he's resurrected when I put my finger in the holes in his hand and in my hand in his side. So Jesus says, okay, as you so wished. Because Jesus has a little bit of humor too. But the point being, instead of Jesus scolding him, he said, okay, I understand you need some things to help you have faith. I'm okay with that. Put your finger in my hand. Put your hand in my side so you can see this is real. This isn't just rumor. And that means that people like you and me, brothers and sisters, when we have our doubts, it's okay. Jesus isn't mad at us for that. Jesus understands that. Come on, this is hard stuff to really believe in. I mean, it's okay to look at it. I think a lot of us kind of believe in it like, oh, that's a great story. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about believing it, envisioning it with our own spiritual eyes, this taking place. So Jesus is resurrected. How are we to be resurrected? And I'm going to digress for just a moment because I have a particular point I'm going to make that some people are going to disagree with, and that's okay. You can disagree all you want. It's my show, so I have the microphone. I know some people get mad at my sarcasm. It's really meant in fun, okay? Lighten up a little bit. But who was the first person to see Jesus when he resurrected? Mary. And Mary went, of course, Jesus said, she thinks it's the gardener, and so he says, Mary, says her name, and she says, my Lord. And he says, don't touch me, I haven't ascended. But more importantly, she goes to tell the others. What's the important point of this? That makes Mary, a woman, the apostle to the apostles. She was the first one that Jesus appeared to. Think about that. Why do not women have more voices in the church today? They used to. Here's a little history for you, and I'll get back into our message, but I think this is an important point as well. At one point, we had women priests. We did. And after Constantine and the boys, the hairy-legged boys took over again, we got rid of that. And that's a huge mistake because we need both the male and the female, the masculine and the feminine, to really understand God. Because God is both, and yet God is none. It's a paradox. Everything that's spiritual is truly paradoxical. And so I really believe for us to have true insight, we need the voice of women in the church, at the pulpit, as clergy. Okay, this is why I have so much respect for my Episcopalian brothers and sisters. They figured that out. Okay, Lutherans are figuring it out. Parts of Lutheran. There's other parts of the Lutheran church that won't have anything to do with it. Methodists are figuring that out. And when I was serving as core bishop, we had two women that we were able to get ordained as deaconesses, and they served as full deacons. But that's as far as the church would let us go in the Orthodox without us getting excommunicated, and I still need the job. So so I showed some guts, not as much as maybe I should have, but I'm not ready for martyrdom yet. You know, that's for our saints, and I'm not a saint. Anyone who knows me would tell you that. So Jesus appears, the resurrection. Now, really cool things happen with this. Because he appears at different times to different disciples and to a group of 500 one time. So this isn't just a couple people who say they saw him. But more than that, in the resurrection, when Mary thinks that this is the gardener, until Jesus says, Mary, and she realizes this is Jesus, and she turns and says, my Lord and my God. Well, this is Easter. How are we going to hear our name called and turn and say, my Lord and my God, and recognize Jesus in our presence? And I mean that sincerely. The only way we can recognize Jesus in our presence is by doing these loving things unto others, washing each other's feet, so to speak. Now, you can do it literally as well, too. I mean, it's a nice thing to do, and it's a beautiful thing to do. I'm not putting that down at all. I think once in a while we should do that, and I'm glad that usually during this time the priests wash the feet of the people. It's quite appropriate. It reminds us, if only we can stop being priests for the moment while we do it and realize that we're on equal ground with the people whose feet we're washing. I think we've lost some of that. But really to humbly be there and realize that we're receiving a gift. We're not giving the gift, we're receiving the gift. The gift of humility, the gift of being like Jesus. Okay? Now, when I say that, I want to be real clear. When we say to follow Jesus, to imitate Jesus, we're not saying be Jesus. God created you to be you. You can do these things that Jesus does, but be you. That's why God created you. Okay? So in this time of resurrection, this Easter season, this is the most joyful of all of the sacred times in the church calendar. In fact, you may not know this, but until St. Francis of Assisi, we didn't even celebrate Christmas. That was just when Jesus was born. This was the apex. This was the big deal, the resurrection. This proved that it was all real. Well, the idea is for us to resurrect with Jesus. And part of that is by recognizing the Christ Spirit within ourselves. After spending the 3 days in the tomb, and we're going to do this over and over again. It's not just once a year. All of life is death and resurrection. Death, rest, resurrection. Okay? And we look at that in nature. What happens? We live during the summer. During fall, the leaves fall off. We're dead during the winter. We resurrect in spring. Isn't that beautiful? It's incredible. God keeps giving this message all through nature. This wasn't a one and done. This is a continual thing. So in our lives, that we're not afraid of the dark we're going into, we're not so afraid because we realize it's not the end. It's just what we have to do before we can resurrect. And what is resurrection? It's new life, greater life, life with fewer limitations. And we can have this if we show up for it. We don't have to fight the process as much. Now, when I first started going through this, I really fought it. I don't know about you, but I really fought it because I was afraid. I thought I was being a bad Christian because I had doubt, I had fear, I was scared to death. And then I saw the scripture in the Garden of Gethsemane. Goodness. And there's another part I'm going to digress to, and I know we're getting to the last parts of the show, but I think it's important to include. Just because you find a spiritual understanding and you're growing doesn't mean other people are going to recognize it within you. When you were 12 years old and you threw the rock through your neighbor's window, and then later you come back and maybe you become a doctor or a priest or a nun or something, and your neighbor's not impressed. They still see the 12-year-old that threw the rock through their window. They don't see any things that you've done. Well, sometimes people are like that in all of life. And so we go through a transformation in our spirituality. And we're on new footing. And we have new insights. And we are finding our true self. But people around us don't see it. So here are the centurions from the Roman government. Here are the Jewish rabbis from the Hebrew government, from Jerusalem. And they can't see that this is the Son of God. So we shouldn't be so harsh on people who can't see our spirituality. They couldn't see it in Jesus. So it's okay they may not see it in us. Yet, as it was revealed to different people, even the centurion at the cross, when all these things happened, when Jesus ascended the first time, when he left his body, when he said it is done, he said this was truly the Son of God. And the other ones had said, oh, this really was the Son of God. Well, our resurrection is when we realize, hey, I'm the Son of God, or I'm the daughter of God. Did you hear that? I'm the Son of God. I'm the daughter of God. That's our resurrection on Easter. Recognizing it is revealed who you really are. That's not blasphemy. I take that right from Scripture. I take it right from Paul's words as well. And Jesus even said, these things I have done, you shall do, and far greater things shall you do that I have done. But we're also told, don't, and I'm paraphrasing here, don't make the mistake thinking that you're doing it. It's the Father within that does all the work. Jesus even said, of myself I can do nothing. So as we resurrect this Sunday on Easter, resurrect with Jesus and recognize, indeed, he is risen. And that's how we greet each other in the Orthodox Church, and I believe the Romans do it as well. We say, the Lord is risen. And the response is, indeed he is. Not indeed he did, past tense. Indeed he is, current, present tense. I want you to look in the mirror this Sunday on Easter and say, the Lord is risen, and look at your reflection and look yourself right in the eye and say, indeed he is. Indeed he is. If you're a woman, indeed she is. Because that Christ Spirit is within you. What you're looking for, you're looking with. It's in there. So looking for your glasses when you're wearing them. I use that analogy because I do that all the time. Frank will see me wandering around the station. What you looking for? My glasses. You're wearing them. So I still have to learn this myself, okay? We can have a little fun with ourselves with this. But today's resurrection is the experience of Christ being in you, that you are embodying this great truth, that the Lord is risen. Indeed, he is. Indeed, she is. But don't leave it there. What did Jesus do? Jesus went out and continued the blessings. Jesus blessed us to go out and continue this message. What's the message? That everyone matters. We are all loved. Now, Jesus didn't say just to Christians. We came up with that much later, because at that time we didn't have many being called Christians. We went to the Gentiles. We went to everybody. And it took us a little time to learn how to do that. Read your scriptures, you'll find out about that. But the point is, we are to see the Christ Spirit in everything that's living. Now, I take that right from Scripture. There's nothing that wasn't created through Christ. Everything that was created through Christ. Everything that was created through that word, through Christ. That means Hindus, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, it don't matter, atheists, all were created in this word of Christ. And we really don't experience Easter until we look around and we see the resurrected Christ in our fellow human being, and in nature, and in love. And when we do that, we too are drawn up in the resurrection. And this Christ Spirit lives in us currently today. I wish you a blessed Easter. I wish you a great resurrection this year. More importantly, I wish you life. Now, as we're going into our last minute here, I know we're dealing with coronavirus. I know it's difficult to stay sheltered at home, and yes, I am wearing masks. I have my mask here. Those of you who saw the pictures on Facebook, I did make a mask out of handkerchief because mine are still stuck in customs trying to get here. I didn't know they're going to be sent from China when I buy them on Amazon. And, they keep backdating my delivery date. So if someone wants to send me a mask, I will accept it with great gratitude. I'll even give you a shout out on the air. But during this time, be smart, stay in. Don't be political about this. Don't be silly about it. It's a real pandemic. Use the brain God gave us to use. And if you're able to do loving things for others, do it. But let's start out with loving you. And if no one told you this week that they love you, let me be the first. And thank you for, again, listening to Viewpoint with Father John. We'll be back with you next week. God bless. Namaste.